Now I kind of look back, and at the time I was starting to, you know, go to church and, on this a little more of a faith journey. And I was like, man, I just feel like God opened this door for me. And I was like, he would have shut it if and said, all right, this is where you're supposed to be. And I would have done something else. So I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Welcome back to another edition of TrashTainment, where we talk money, business, relationship, and we also talk a little trash. Today, I have a special guest on my podcast who is a great friend of mine. He goes by the name of Mark Allen. So, just to give you guys a background of Mark, Mark entered the world of investments in real estate back in 2009 and has been involved in the acquisition, renovation, management, and disposition of over 1.5 billion with a B in real estate. Today, Mark focuses on multifamily owner representation, leveraging his military operations, sales, marketing, and real estate investment experience to provide superior service for his clients. Mark attended the United States Military Academy at West Point and was a member of the Army football team. Mark is married to April, who owns a salon in Southlake, Texas, and they currently have two children, Miles and Olivia. Welcome, Mark Allen, to the show, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh man, that's a lot. That was a
That's,
lot,
that's
man.
a mouthful, huh?
So, tell us about your career and how you got started, because man, that is a lot to be proud of. That is and you're still young, and you have accomplished a lot. So let's go back to the beginning. How did Mark get into the real estate industry, specifically the multifamily space?
I guess I'd have to take it all the way back. So my my father, I grew up around it because my grandparents were both real estate agents in my hometown of St. Cloud, Florida,
Okay.
and they had rental properties in my hometown. And I think at certain points, and growing up, my dad had a few rental properties. So I was exposed to it. My dad was started as a carpenter. He had a hotel renovation company back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they were traveling all across the country with crews doing, big hotel renovations.
Okay.
So he's always been kind of in construction. And he got his, in Florida, it's kind of the Wild West here in Texas. In Florida, he got his general contractor's license back in 98 and started building homes.
Gotcha.
So the first home he actually built was our own home. And anyways, I mean, just being exposed to all aspects of with my grandparents as real estate agents, him in construction, the investment real estate through the rental properties. I've been exposed to it. As I was, the market in Florida and across the country was on fire as far as real estate goes,
Yeah.
and my dad, he'll say today he did not diversify. He put all of his eggs back into his own business.
Okay.
And fortunately, he was in the real estate business, and the real estate business has cycles. So he got rocked during the global financial crisis, and basically, I wouldn't say lost everything, but it was a tough time for
Tough
him.
time. Yeah.
And I was in college. I left. Um, I went off to West Point in 2006 when I graduated high school. And so, at that time the market was still good, but I remember at a certain point, my parents couldn't come up and visit. It was really 2007 he started to feel it, so they couldn't come
Wow.
up and visit or anything like that. And I mean, there's probably some lessons that I've learned through that we could go into. But anyways, long story short, so at the academies,
Okay.
Air Force, Navy, West Point in particular, and then ROTC, what USAA, Navy Federal Credit Union,
Okay.
and maybe a couple other banks, what they'll do is a career starter loan. So they offered the cadets a $35,000 loan at 0.5% interest rate. And so my dad at the time, knowing, I mean, he's like, hey, I got really no money. I've got no credit. And I'm just in survival mode right
I got
now.
nothing to lose, but everything to gain.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
said it. I know it's a good time to buy real estate. So I came home, I think for spring break after getting this loan. We met with a lot of different banks, and me being, whatever I was at the time, maybe 21 years old in college, having no credit, you know, I actually was, had some, you get paid there. You're considered like an E1, which is a private, so you get paid like $800 a month or something like that.
Gotcha.
But a lot of that goes to books and uniforms and whatnot. So, anyways, I couldn't get a loan otherwise. And there was a company called National Loan Acquisition Company that came across and bought a lot of my dad's distressed debt directly, from the banks. So lines of credit, construction loans, and they helped him out. They actually gave him some work. So I think it helped in the survival. But long story short, they had a condo that they foreclosed, or they bought the debt and foreclosed on and took over, and had just started renovations. And my father told them that I had, this $35,000, and or maybe he didn't tell him how much, but I had some money, and they said we'll sell it to him for 19.5. So I bought this 2-bed 2-bath condo in Melbourne, Florida,
Gotcha.
and whatever I was at the time, 21 or 22 years old, and my dad has always been. I'm fortunate. He's always been, one to try to help me out and help me get ahead, which I appreciate. And so he sent his subcontractors over. He helped me, finish up the paint, finish up the kitchen. He said, hey, you should go to this I'll go to this appliance warehouse for you, buy some appliances that needed appliances. So I spent about $5,000, had it all fixed up for less than 25,
Wow.
and put in a tenant. And so that got me rolling. I really didn't, I thought it was cool, but I didn't really dive into how can I scale this? I just wasn't thinking about that. And part of it was I had enough going on, with 21 credit hours at the academy. I had, football.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really have a life. So I just wasn't really thinking about that. But I did manage it with the help of my father, and eventually, graduated, went out into the field as a field artillery officer, into the force, I guess you could say. And when I was in Afghanistan, I got deployed to Afghanistan, just had, some extra time on my hands. So I started digging in. We had internet out there, so I got on biggerpockets.com, found that in 2012. And, came across some different strategies like house hacking. I was like, okay, I got the VA loan at my disposal, which is a no money down, financing for veterans. And so, I asked a buddy of mine who was back home, was my roommate. I said, hey, I want to buy a new house because we were renting. And, I bought a 4-bed, 3-bath house while I was there. He helped. I mean, basically, I did it all from abroad, and then started to kind of like market some of the rooms to some of my buddies on Facebook that I knew were stationed there. So I rented out each of the rooms and kept one for myself. And so that kind of got me, that was my next foray. So there I was. I ended up, after I got back from Afghanistan in 2013, at a weekend event in Austin, because I was at Fort Hood, Texas, which is, about an hour north of Austin. And I was sold. Went $20,000 in credit card debt. I think I was making, I was a lieutenant at the time, so I don't know, maybe. And I had some money saved up, but had blown a lot of it, traveling and traveling and having fun on clothes and travels through Asia and all sorts of stuff when I got back from Afghanistan. But so I went $20,000 in credit card debt. I took, signed up for the courses, got, a mentor,
Gotcha.
and, went through the courses, which were like kind of online and book. And I just took action really because I was like, okay, I can't be racking up whatever the interest rate is, like 17.5% or something on credit card debt. So I got to get this paid off ASAP.
Yeah.
And the longer I wait to not do deals, and if I'm just chipping away, pull a little bit out of my monthly check or something, like, it's going to take me years to pay this off. So I just, again, through some of the connections I made on Bigger Pockets, really the Kiyosaki thing, when I think about it, all it did was spur me on to take action because I was like, I got to pay off this debt.
Yeah.
So I met with a couple of different real estate investors who were helpful at the time. I met with an attorney who was helpful, a real estate attorney, and he was big in Texas for doing what's called subject to deals. So basically, like you assume the mortgage
Okay.
and the deed transfers to you, so you take over someone's mortgage. And so I could come into deals. Again, I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I could come into a property for a couple hundred to $1,000.
And
And I was like, hey, I'll take over your problem. Here's a amount of money, and I would from there just put a tenant in, or if it already had, or whatever the case may be.
yeah, so what age were you when you started to get serious about real estate?
Yeah, so I don't think I really was, and I mean, I guess even after the fact, like when I got back from Afghanistan, I was like trying to cope with reality. It was like I was gone for a 9 month period, and it was really weird when I came back, and it was like life was on pause back home, and you get back and you see, they bus us, we land, they bus us onto the military post. You see cars, you see the traffic, and like all these things that you haven't seen in a while. It was just kind of, it was a little bit surreal. Um, so it wasn't, I mean, like I said, I messed around for a little bit, just I,
Yeah.
I I was doing house hacking, but I also had a two-bedroom apartment downtown Austin, and was of the mentality I may not be back to Austin, and I'm in my 20s, like I need to enjoy this.
Yeah.
So it was a little, I wouldn't say I was serious, but I had a little bit of flexibility as we kind of rest and recovered, and I wasn't out like training and doing all that kind of stuff. So I played around a little bit, but then started spend some free time learning. But it really wasn't until I moved to Dallas and I actually left my military, you know, career, because really it had been at that point a big part of my life from 18 to 26, I think,
Mhm.
26, 27. And so it had been a big part of my life, and just kind of assimilating into civilian culture.
Yeah.
But I had, now I work for a software company. Um, and I just felt like, well, I was a sales position too. So it was like my first time, one of my biggest frustrations with the military is like, I can show up, play the politics, be in the right uniform, show up the right time,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get promoted. Like it wasn't, it was very socialistic, versus like I wanted something where the better I performed, like
The more
the,
money you
the,
got.
the more I earned, or,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So, that's why I wanted to get into sales. So I got into sales, and I think that's when I kind of, really turned it on, um, because I was competitive. It was something new. It was something exciting,
Yeah.
and um, and then after a while, I realized like I don't really like selling software,
Yeah.
and I started getting more involved in real estate as more of a side hustle, and I had the freedom and flexibility because I worked from home. So I started doing deals that way, and I think my father had started to recover, and with some credit, and some money, and I said, hey, would you want to go in and form a venture, and you put a little money in, I'll put some money in, and that'll help me get better financing. So I started flipping homes, which is what I really didn't get into. So at a certain point, I was like, man, I'm trying to be the best I can be on one side, working for this company and meet my quota and do all these things.
You can't do
But I,
both.
but I really didn't like it. But
Yeah.
what I really enjoyed was real estate.
Uh-huh.
So at a certain point, I was like, I need to figure out something else. I
Got
don't
you.
want to do this. And it was kind of right under my nose the whole time. Like my family was in real estate, and
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. Like your
yeah,
family.
and then right after that, I had met with a commercial real estate broker that I saw on LinkedIn, who was a former military guy, and he was the one that kind of pitched me, because I was like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do. If I should go into maybe medical sales, or I want to stay in sales. And he said, why don't you become a commercial real estate broker? I was like, well, that's commission only, right? I don't get a salary. And he said, yeah. And he said, why don't you come in and meet some of the team, and And really, I didn't know much about it.
And this is a company that you're with right now,
Still with today.
still with today.
Yeah.
And at this time, you're living in Austin, and you meet this
Oh
guy
no,
on
I'm
LinkedIn.
in Dallas.
You're in Dallas. So
Yeah.
what made you move to
But
Dallas?
the software sales
The
job.
software sales company. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So now you're in Dallas. You meet this guy off LinkedIn. He tells you, "Hey, man, come join and get into the multifamily space."
I didn't even know that commercial real estate brokers generally specialize, whether they specialize in a location
Okay.
or an asset class. I didn't know anything. And I literally had like two meetings with them, and they were like, "Hey, if
Yeah.
you want to come on board, you can." And I was like, I'm not that I was so unhappy, but I'm like, I don't like what I'm doing so much that I'm just gonna jump in. I've got some money saved up. We'll see how it goes. And then, I said, hey, if I don't close anything, I'll go find another
Go
job
find another
in
job.
a year. And I closed 8 deals the first year, and it just, was rolling. I said, okay, I guess this is where I'm supposed to be. But it's funny because we'll have people reach out to us. Like we had a guy that we hired from Jacksonville,
Uh huh.
and he was a double major, finance, economics, and he was like, I've done my research. Multifamily is the top asset class, and Dallas Fort Worth has the most transactions, so that I want to be a
It's true.
multifamily broker in Dallas. And I was like thinking about myself. I'm like, I knew nothing. I just stumbled into it. So now I kind of look back, and at the time I was starting to, you know, go to church and
Yeah.
on this a little more of a faith journey.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I just feel like God opened this door for me. And I was like,
He should.
he would have shut it if and said, all right, this is where you're supposed to
Yeah.
be. And I would have done something else. So
Yeah.
I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. I feel like you are where you are because you are where you are. And when God gives you a sign, you have to move on it. And that was a sign for that guy to reach out to you on LinkedIn, and you actually moved on it. Some people don't move on certain things, and it can actually be a blessing for you and change the trajectory of your life and for your family life too. So shout out to whoever the guy is. So you did a deal for 176 million. Walk me through that journey because somebody watching this podcast may be like, "Oh, now I want to be a real estate broker." But you've been doing it for a while now and you're seasoned and you put in the work, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
So we don't want to give that um light to say, "Hey, come be a broker. It's easy. You can make these type of transactions too."
Yeah.
So walk us through that process of doing that and being a part of that.
Yeah. So I think back now and I'm like, man, I just was so naive. I didn't know what I didn't know, which
Mhm.
I'd already mentioned. But I think about, the guy that says, you know, multifamily broker in Dallas is where I want to be because it's what sells the most. And
Yeah.
he realized when properties sell, there's there's revenue that comes in, there's commissions to be made.
Mhm.
And but along with that, it is one of the most competitive multifamily brokerage markets in the country.
It is.
Uh, we we have representation from like every large commercial real estate brokerage, in the world, from Cushman & Wakefield to Newmark Knight Frank, CBRE, so on and so forth. Um, so I think it's probably one of the top, definitely top five most competitive and some of the most seasoned brokers. And to break in, like I think about it now, I'm like, I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think if I would have known, maybe it would have been like,
Discouraging.
kind of that, yeah, discouraging and like, man, there's a lot more risk than I expect. Maybe I shouldn't do this. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I took a little bit different approach as far as, like in the residential space, podcast, marketing, things like that are a lot bigger than they are commercials, a little more antiquated. So, from building lists and doing a new monthly newsletter to starting a podcast, which has evolved a little bit. And maybe I don't do as much as I used to, but I've even went to more like video format and things like that. So I don't know. I was just doing some different things. The other thing, I
Yeah.
had the time because I wasn't married. I was working on the weekends. I was working longer hours, and you know, so I was hustling.
Hustling, hustling. Every day we hustling. So someone had told me, and this might have something to do with your military background. It was like Mark is a order taker. You tell Mark to do something or ask Mark of something, he's gonna do it. And when this person told me this, I'm thinking about all the things that I ask of you, and you are quick. You are fast. You are, you're always willing to help the next person or to make an introduction. And I think in this world, in the industry that we're both in, because I'm in the trash space, we work with the Mochi family, and you selling apartments and stuff like that. Some people are afraid to make an introduction to somebody else or to plant that seed or to help the next person. And when this person told me, like, Mark is an order taker, and I'm like, what does he mean by that? And he started to explain, like, Mark is a beast. When someone asks Mark to do something or complete a task or something comes across his desk, he finished that shit. Like, he gets that shit done. Like, and if you ask him, hey, I want to connect with so and so, when he said this is how I knew it was true because you done it for me.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, so and I feel like that's probably one of the biggest thing that someone can have on their journey is to just show up
Hmm.
and to help others.
Hmm.
Because I have this saying, the more you have to give to get, and then get to give,
Hmm.
and it works just like that. It has to be reciprocity on the deal and the back and forth. So, yeah, I wanted to share that with you to see if that matches up
Yeah, I
to.
mean, I think communication, constant communication. I mean, it's a customer service. We're providing a service, so it's like
Yeah,
that. Plus, people know that I'm going to take action. There's some of my competitors that have like more junior people, and like they'll bring in the deal. It's like, all right, well, like I just want to deal with the seller. You go service it.
yeah,
You two or three go service it. I'm very involved. Um, I, so it's like we always build a team on each of the listings. It's all the way from just holding accountability, making sure everyone's execute. But I'm a bit of control freak in that sense. So it's like I always want to, you know, I'm doing a lot of work.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I told someone this recently, but when an owner entrusts, $30 million of their assets, them and their investors' money, I take that very seriously.
hmm,
And I tell some of our brokers that, like, you need to, because whether it's private client or it's some like family office, like whatever the case may be, it's a lot of money that they're entrusting us. It's money,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
so it's a lot of pressure when we go to market and we're guiding to a certain price. I get performance anxiety because I
yeah,
want to make sure I perform for my client and do the best job possible, maximize that price for them and ultimately their return on investment. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't know if everyone's got that same mentality, especially when you're you know been in the business so long. Maybe you tend to forget about that, but
Yeah.
I always try to keep that top of mind.
How do you maintain relationships? Because in the in the business that we're in, it's always fast paced, fast paced. And like I know the money is in the follow up. Just in case you guys don't know, the money is always in the follow up. So how do you maintain relationships with the people that you have, plus the people that you're trying to connect with?
Yeah. I'll be honest, and I'm not the best at it.
Oh wow.
uh,
Oh.
I've I've tried a system, and I look at myself as pretty disciplined, but I've gotten away from the system. But I mean,
It's hard.
if I were to recommend something, is to have a system, and it could be as simple as what I was using before was a top 100 and 300. So it was 400 contacts, and I think that's one of the things I've realized too. It's like, you only have so much time in the day, and especially as I've gotten older with different
Family.
priorities with
Yep.
family and kid activities and all sorts of stuff. So it's like you got to figure out where to invest that time, and you can't manage you know and go deep on 400 relationships, but maybe 50.
Yeah.
So anyways, like, that top 100 you're touching on a regular basis through phone calls, maybe it's through letters, mail, um, through email, whatever the case may be. Top 300 would at least be once a quarter. So I mean, there's certain systems, and again, I wouldn't say the best. I'm the best at it, but I make it. For me, obviously, I'm marketing properties, so I'm making 100 to 200 calls a week. I got a time block, got to set time for that, and I make it a point too to spend to at least have two face-to-face meetings, whether those are you know, anything from meeting an owner at a property to a lunch meeting. So two minimum.
Two
I
minimum a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to get more
So
than
that
that,
increase your odds.
but again, like, you're only spending a certain amount of time. What's really fun and what I wish I could spend more time. It's an investment, but we've done client trips, and we bought a rental that we both rent out but also use quite a bit in Florida, next to the beach. So we doing those kind of trips are really fun too. Doing ski trips or beach trips or whatever the case may be, and
Investing
actually,
into your clients, showing your appreciation, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
But through those trips, you spend 3 days with someone, three
Get
four
to know them.
days. You really get to know them on a in a different level. So those have always been, I value those, and those have always been a lot of fun for me.
Now, you are in this space. You made a lot of money. You have a lot of success in the multifamily space. Business, you're a sharpshooter, you're a killer. Um, what is next for you within the next 5, 10 years in business?
Yeah. I was fortunate to be made. Todd Franks started the company, and I was fortunate to be made. He's, obviously a good friend and has
Mhm.
been more of a mentor. And he brought me in to partner back in 2020. So been made a partner, and I think through that, part of it's been the market, but I'd like to think it's some of the thing. I track the market very well, and I've got a lot of ideas. And fortunately, we got a good team and staff, and
Mhm.
who's helped integrate and implement some of these ideas to help make us, what I think more competitive. But that's one aspect. The other would be, just the leadership and motivation, and collaboration and all these different things. So um, we have been trying to, grow the company. The market has shifted. We were obviously down last year, but there's some things that we're proud of, and we're trying to, gain market share, even though business is
Yeah.
down. This is the time we think that we got to keep pedal to the metal. So, to answer your question, I guess 5, 10 years out, the ultimate goal is to exit and sell. Well, to sell the company.
Mhm.
Um, maybe I talk a little bit about GREA. In 2022, we launched GREA, and we were formerly part of a big company called Greystone. We were a joint venture partner,
Okay.
so we weren't owned by them. We were still independently operated and owned. And so there were some things that were happening internally, and a couple of us got together and we said, why don't we just start our own? Like, we've got at least four like-minded individual companies. Why
Individuals.
don't we form our own company? We knew that Greystone was in talks with a Portland office and a Philadelphia office, and they couldn't work out a deal. So we approached them and said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking." So there were 6 founding partner offices, and we launched GREA in the beginning of 2022. And the name, actually is, like, I guess, formally Global Real Estate Advisors, but we were
Okay.
Greystone Real Estate Advisors internally. GREA.com was available, and it's hard to find a 3 or 4 letter domain
It is.
available for sale and at the price that we bought it for. So we were kind of like, what does the G stand for? And someone was like, gangster, you know, like generational growth. So I don't know. We it says global, but if you go to our website, the GREA rotates to some of those words, generational growth. Um, but yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is to keep growing the company. We just added 2 offices in North Carolina and New York City. So we're focused on Western expansion and just figuring out how we can become one unified. Um, Although we're still, we still have some differences in each individual office and as far as how we operate, but generally, how do we become more unified and collaborative
Yeah.
and better service, clients across the country?
And at first, when I first started my trash business, I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna, get the cash flow from it and and invest into other things. But I forgot what what YouTube I was watching or what book I read, but it says the business will make you rich, but selling and investing will make you wealthy.
Yeah,
So from that point on, it's like, as a business owner, you got to invest back into the business. Cash flows upside down sometimes, down, up, up,
yeah,
down. But the real money is when you exit and when you invest,
yeah.
when your money's working for you. So you mentioned about, you guys are in a downturn right now. How do you handle that? Like, cause I gotta be a lot of stress because I know when my money's not right and when shit's not moving the way that I want it to move, it can cause some type of level of depression or some type of level of um, boredom. So how do you stay in the fight? How do you keep going? And what are some of the anxiety stresses that you go through in a time like this? And how do you handle that?
I mean, frankly, I think there's been through the, I mean, just even the past couple of years, but we've been fortunate to have a long run. So there's a lot of capital on hand if we were to need to inject it. We've been very cognizant of our expenses and trying to, lean up, knowing, after in 2022 when the Fed started hiking rates, knowing that it would slow, like, hey, where can we trim? Not from a payroll is our biggest expense, but we weren't going to cut anyone from a staff perspective. So, what where can we lean up? Um, but generally, I don't think we worried about it, too much. Obviously, we've had some down years. I think we've had the last 2 years, but we've been, or the last year, but we've been, I guess, aware and we're in a good position. So I don't know.
So
There's
you
not
got
a lot of stress.
yeah, so you guys was already prepared for something like this to happen, which
Yeah.
is smart, because you have to think ahead, and when the money's coming in greatly and abundantly, you can't get so caught up in the hype of, oh, I'm rich as a bitch, or I get to go buy the Lambo. You got to have some type of level of discipline and say, not right now, not.
When
Go
I
ahead.
first got in the business, Todd brought me into a lunch meeting with a guy that started buying multifamily maybe in the early 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so he had seen the ups and downs over the years. I had probably even been a real estate investor longer than that. But, you know, Todd was like, what advice do you got for this young guy here that's new to the business?" And he said, anything you close, he said, live frugal and put your money away because this isn't going to last forever.
Smart man.
Yeah, there's good times and there's bad times.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I think we've all, Todd has always, been that way. Just he got in the business in 2000. So I mean, he at least saw the GFC, or he was in the business, through that, and had saw, income go up, income go down.
Yeah.
And then so, uh,
What's one experience you've been through, like one of the most challenging times in your life? And I give you an example of one of mine. You kind of know my story because we're friends. The brokest that I've ever been was when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was working at Domino's Pizza. Dude, I bought a car, Mazda Protege. I think it was like a 1998, 2000 maybe, 19 whatever Mazda Protege. I bought it from a guy who didn't have the title to it, so I had to always write 30-day tags on a cardboard and put it in the back of the car. Um, he had the insurance. I don't know if it was real insurance on the vehicle or not, but I had to always go to him every month to get this paperwork or whatever. And I'm working at Domino's Pizza, and my phone is off, and I'm making the pizzas, and then this order comes up. It was like, and the guy, his name was Ahmed. He was from Chicago, Middle Eastern guy. If I ever saw that guy, I would give you a big hug. I'm looking at the camera, give you a big hug because I was so broke, I couldn't afford the non-slip resistant shoes. So what he did for me is he went inside of the petty cash and gave me $40 to go to Walmart and go buy some non-slip resistant shoes. So when he gives me the $40, man, I'm just crying all the way back to Walmart because I don't come from money. My mother don't have money. Nobody in my family really has it, and I rather earn everything that I get or that I have. So I just remember me crying all the way to Walmart, man. And I get back. He said, "Hey, this order just pop up. I want you to run this one. It's going to East Paces Ferry Road." And I was working off Howell Mill, and I did not know that I was in one of the richest Domino's pizza place delivering pizza because I was living in Jimmy Carter off Jimmy Carter in Gwinnett County at the time. So I was traveling like 35 minutes to work.
Mm.
He said, "No, I want you to do this one." He said, "You know how to read a map?" I'm like, "No." My phone's off. And he was like, "Hey, you're right here. You're going to go up here, make a left, make it right. You're going to run right into East Paces Ferry Road." I'm like, "Okay, all right, all right." Man, I get in the car and I'm just driving. I'm remembering the things that he told me. And my gas light comes on. I'm like, "Fuck." Then from there, I'm just like, I'm 25 minutes late. I'm lost. So I'm pulling over and I'm seeing people jogging and running. I'm like, "Hey, how do I get to East Paces Ferry Road?" They said, "You're almost here. Go right here at the stop sign, make a right. You're going to come to the light, make a left. You're going to run right into it." Dude, I pull up to this mansion. I'm like, "Holy shit. This is my first delivery." And I pulled up to this mansion and I'm like, "What the fuck?" And I've always been a dreamer. Even when I didn't have, I just always just dreamed of living a type of lifestyle like that. Porch outside, and I will never forget this lady come to the door. You see straight in her home, marble floors, and I'm saying, "Ma'am, I'm sorry for being late. It's my first delivery, first run." She said, "Don't worry about that, baby. You're fine." And I'm like in my head, "Please give me a tip because I don't have no money. My gas lights on, my phone's off." And she hands me $20. Dude, I got in the car and I cried again. And I just thank God, like thank you, God. And I pulled over, put $15 in the tank, kept the $5 in my pocket, and I remember eating pizza every day. The wings, the bread, the cheese sticks, everything. So we talked about money, we talked about business, we talked about relationships. Now let's talk about family. What is family to you, and how important it is to be available for your kids, your wife, because money comes and goes. Um, Business is transactional, but something that will always stick through the good, bad, and ugly is your family.
Yeah,
What does that mean to you?
it's tough, man. As I mean, I know we were talking about this earlier.
Mhm.
You put me on the spot, but balance, I think, for any entrepreneur is a challenge, and I don't always do the best at it. Um, just I mean, again have some. I realize when I have challenges, maybe my wife isn't feeling loved because or made a priority because of she feels I have other priorities like work. She'll let me know, and I'm thankful for that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think one of the big things is like it is important to me. I say that, but I've got to make sure, and even just it's good to have these conversations. We were talking before and on the way over here. It's just you ask me some questions that are like reflection questions,
Mhm.
and they're good questions. What am I doing that is not just going through the motions day in and day out? I don't get a lot of time, through the week. Generally, I'm like when I think of a lot of families in America, I was like, okay, like I feel like a good dad, good husband.
Yeah.
I take my kids to preschool at 9 a.m. and I'm home by 6 every day.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, it's a little bit harder for me to be present. I've tried to put some things in place, like technology is probably the biggest thing that takes away my presence. So
Yeah.
coming home, putting my phone in the bathroom, on charge, spending time with the kids because I only got an hour, put them down to bed, maybe catch up on any emails or any, you
Yeah.
know, texts or phone calls that come through, you know, and then in reality, have some time if I can get the kids down, connect
Yeah.
with the wife.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a constant. There's like that sanctification process, right, where we're constantly like renewing ourselves, or it's like the growth mode, like constantly getting better, and not just in this area of faith, but also I think in just various areas of life. So it's something that's important to me, and I can say that at times, but sometimes I got to reflect and ask myself, is it truly important? Because are you making it a priority?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, I'm
It's
not.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
No.
why it's good to have these friendships where we can actually talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's you know being an entrepreneur and being you know a person of value, whether you're man, women, or a woman. It's tough when you have big goals and big dreams that you want to set out for your family. And I go through the same thing. Far as limited time with the wife, limited time with the kids, um, you know, not showing up when it really matters, not being emotional available. And I think this is something that is not glorified as much because social media can make anybody look like a superhero or make anybody look good off photos or videos of business or whatever. But family is everything to me. It's hard to balance and it's hard to give time to the people that really matter the most to you and you matter the most to.
Hmm.
With that being said, it's learning how to be there in the moment. Sometimes we're here,
Yeah.
but mentally, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, man,
Talking to
this
a
dad,
wall.
he's
Yeah.
talking to a brick wall. I'm like spaced out. This deal didn't go through. I just lost the deal. All of that
Yeah.
stuff is going in your head. Like, damn, I gotta follow up with this person. And daddy, 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 honey, honey, honey. And it's like you can't breathe.
Hmm.
And then you're competitive just like me. And it's like, you know, I want to kick my competitors' ass because they want to do the same thing to me.
Yeah.
It's a friendly war, but it's like I want to win.
Yeah.
I want to win. I want to dominate.
Yeah.
I want to annihilate you. Like, dude, like you going against me, like it's a mistake, But it's if anyone has the remedy, the keys to this family business dynamic thing,
Hmm.
I want to know more about it, dude.
Yeah.
I want to know more about it. Mark Allen, everybody, one of the biggest top brokers here in the DFW area. I highly recommend him if you guys are looking to sell, to purchase, or looking for any representation on on someone to represent you on a deal. Mark out.
Much appreciated.